My name is Tina Coleman, a Regional Extension Dairy Educator at the University of Wisconsin Division of Extension. Now, today's topic will be moving cows without the cows, focusing on interactive learning experience to help keep employees engaged in learning. Handling cows is necessary to harvest milk and provide animal care, but these interactions also present a risk of injury to personnel. Inappropriate cow handling threatens animal welfare, milk production, and public trust in our dairy industry. But how can the industry best teach these skills? Today, our first speaker is Extension Farm Management Outreach Specialist Jim Versweyveld, who can help answer this question. Jim will help us rethink employee onboarding and training, and will focus how interactive learning experiences can help build confidence by allowing dairy workers to actively participate in their own training. In his extension role, Jim provides outreach and education to agricultural producers in the areas of farm labor management, owner-employee development, leadership skills, and farm safety. Jim joined UW Extension in 2018 as a county-based educator and then moved to his current role in 2021. Previously, Jim worked for 20 plus years in the field of human resources and occupational therapy. Thank you, Jim, for joining us today, and let's hear some of your thoughts on how to rethink employee onboarding and training.
Thank you, Tina, and thank you everyone for joining us today for this Badger Dairy Insight webinar. I'd like to start off with kind of a recap of why do we train dairy workers? Why do we train dairy farm employees? Well, first and foremost, hopefully, it's to improve business performance. So hopefully there's a strong business case for the training. There's a desired need for increased productivity, improved performance that ties directly to the training, that the owners, managers embrace that concept, and then that's translated to the workers themselves. The training could be to onboard new hires. So an important first step for success for new hires is that they have a thorough onboarding where they're building skills to apply to their new position. On dairy farms, training is often to meet or hopefully exceed industry standards. And those industry standards could be cow handling, could be calf care, could be milk quality, could be any variety of trainings that the business needs to perform as expected and as required. Safety training is another popular training topic. So our industry continues to be plagued with an injury and accident rate that is higher than other industries. And so we are hopeful that safety training is a popular topic on farms. Could be equipment training, could be skid steer safety, could be working with farm chemicals, pesticides, even confined space, any number of hazards that exist on our dairy farms. And then last but not least, hopefully to increase employee engagement, retention, and growth. So research shows that when training is provided to employees, they feel invested in, they feel part of things, they feel valued, and so training can meet those things. But unfortunately, sometimes our farm trainings miss their mark. And why is that? Why do sometimes training sessions on our farms disappoint both the trainer and the trainee? And that can be for a variety of reasons. For one thing, they're often viewed as a cost to productivity, something that takes us out of our regular jobs and forces us to spend time sitting in a break room, in a conference room, wherever the training is being held. So they're sometimes viewed as a cost. When farm leadership feels that way about the training, that message, whether it's intended or not, often translates to the employees as well. Trainings are sometimes viewed as an event. So they're a one-time thing that we don't normally do. They're not part of the fabric of the farm. They're not part of our everyday routine. And so they're viewed as a kind of a one and done. They're typically speaker dominated. So typically there's a trainer in the front of the room presenting a topic. to the employees who may or may not be engaged in that particular topic. And then lastly, a lack of employee interest. And that's probably the area that we're going to focus on the most today. How can we improve that? How can we improve that level of employee interest in the training itself? Another factor that can be challenging is our retention rate as learners. So when we hear a message, when we hear a training that's being presented to us as an employee, we only take away a certain portion of that. The research shows that we only retain about 10% of what we see, 30 to 40% of what we see and hear, and 90% of what we see, hear, and do. So let's break down those numbers just for a minute. So say you're trying to portray a message to your workers on your farm, and your method of communication is to post an instruction sheet, maybe a new protocol or procedure, on an employee bulletin board, on a break room bulletin board, and you're expecting the employees to actually read that and retain that information. Well, unfortunately, only about 10% of that information actually sticks with people. Another tried and true method on dairy farm trainings is videos. So you show a video to cover the topic that you're hoping to cover. So you see and hear the video. But there again, only 34 to 40% of that information actually sticks with people and they retain that. But where you can actually see, hear, and do, where you can be actively participating in the training, you can reach upwards of 90% retention. So let's talk a little bit about adult learners and why are adult learners different than other learners like school kids in a classroom? How are they different? Well, first of all, adult learners have a need to learn. They must, first of all, feel a need for the information. To learn effectively, they want to have motivation, inner motivation for why they would need the skills. You can think of it as, oh, what's in it for me when you approach adult learners on a particular topic. The next aspect is immediate value. So as adults, we are very practical in our approach to learning, and we want to know, how can this course help me right now? Think of it as instant gratification, and that demands active participation. So I'm less likely to just sit back passively and capture the information, but I'm more likely to capture it if I can be actively involved. The next one is relevance. So adults really need to see how the skills being presented are relevant to the job at hand. So think of it as problem and solution. Is a clear problem being presented, and how does the training lead to a solution to that problem? And then lastly, practice. Adult learners really like to practice a skill in order to build that skill. And in addition to practicing, adult learners actually like to practice by themselves without someone watching over them. So, and that could be, fear of judgment for making mistakes or for whatever reason, but that opportunity to practice on their own is very important for adult learners. In addition, adults learn in various styles. So each one of us have a preferred learning style. We fall into one of these three buckets, and it's not the only way we can learn, but it's our preferred style, and it's a way we kind of gravitate towards. So visual learners perform better when they're looking at simple, easy to process images, diagrams, pictures, graphs, things like that. Auditory learners want active participation in a conversation. So they want dialogue, open discussions, and that's how they capture information and learn. And the kinesthetic learners are hands-on people. So they really like to practice with their hands. They like to explore learning through physical activity. So in asking you to kind of rethink your training and onboarding approach for your employees, there's 4 things that you should really consider when you're training adult learners. First of all is involvement. Adult learners need to be actively involved in the learning process in order to kind of connect with that topic. So any meaningful interactions you can add, keep them motivated and engaged will be helpful. The training should also be problem-centered. As I mentioned earlier, problem and solution. What is the problem we're trying to address, and how will this training help reach that solution? And then can practice along the way help to make that, help to reach that goal? Experience. Adult learners like to learn through experience. Memorization of tasks doesn't really work very well for adults. Instead, they like real life scenarios, and a good amount of activities are appreciated. And then it should be realistic. So adult learners want actual real world applications, and incorporating practical problems that are specific to your farm where it's possible. Make sure that they see clear and realistic on-farm examples. So my intended takeaway for you in considering how to rethink your approach to training is start off with a business case. Have I created a strong business case for why this training is occurring in the first place? What's the return on investment? What's the reason that this training will actually improve productivity, performance, safety, worker engagement? What is it about this training that I'm hoping to accomplish? And then consider learner retention rates. So as I mentioned earlier, where we only retain 10% of what we see and 30 to 40% of what we see and hear, have I considered learner retention rates in how I'm planning to deliver this training program? The next one is one that's often overlooked. How can I sell this training to my team? And you may be thinking, well, they're my team. I don't have to sell anything. But the way adult learners are wired, they really want to hear that what's in it for me message. What's the marketing that you're going to take to sell this training course or class to your employees? The next one is, am I reaching all the learning styles? So we mentioned the auditory and the kinesthetic and the visual learners. Is my training mixing that up and reaching those three different primary styles? And then, is there a clearly stated problem and solution? Have I presented the issue clearly and made it relevant to the trainees? And then have I stated how to reach a training solution through that program? So I hope I've presented a case for considering interactive training. Interactive training is simply including activities, simulations, games, assessments, anything that helps employees stay active in the learning process, get them out of their chairs and actively engaged in the learning process. If improving your training methods on your farm is of interest to you as a way to improve employee engagement, I encourage you to consider our course, Becoming the Employer of Choice. Our next session is starting January 8th. It's a 4-week online course. And if you'd like more information about becoming the employer of choice, you can find that at farms.extension.wisc.edu.